congenital symptoms.
All right, Rick, it looks like you'll have to do the slides.
Okay.
It's not bad. Okay, so then, please. Treating hookworms, using hookworms to treat autoimmune disorders. There's no way I can be controlling your back, right?
No. But when you pointed at me, I changed it.
Okay. Right. So this is what we consider hookworms. We consider hookworms when the patient will come to you saying, should I do this? I've heard about this therapy. And we really want to think about this when nothing else works. When all of your naturopathic or conventional tools fail you, the patient constantly gets worse or never gets better. Diets work temporarily, but they become reactive to new foods. It's like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. The patient always relapses. And that was certainly my own experience with conventional medicine and my experience with natural medicine also. Thank you, Rick, I appreciate it. So basically what we're looking at is a three-legged stool here in a stable system. A stable immune system will have your immune system, bacteria, and the proper worm population. If you don't have worms, some people, not all people, obviously a lot of people can survive quite well on our standard system we have today, even without a worm population. But there's a certain population of your patients, and certainly in my family, that will never be stable if they don't have the proper worm population. We call that the two-legged stool. You might get it balanced temporarily, but you're never going to get a complete resolution of the patient's symptoms. So basically, primates have worms. Okay, they studied caged monkeys. They don't have worms. They get autoimmune disease. They get cancer. And they treat those things by adding worms, especially the autoimmunity, and those patients get better. Outside in the wild, every primate has a helmet population or has worms. There's no mammal that does not have a worm population in its gut. So basically, humans, that's the human and that's the gorilla, share the same worm since they diverged, should you believe such things, 17 million years ago. So they've all shared the same hookworm. So hookworms have been around for a long time. And they've been in human beings in every population of them, other than the past 3 generations. So, what did we do? What did we do as a community and a culture? We killed off our worm population in the early 1900s. Not hard to do. If you throw on shoes, you basically stop the life cycle. If you have low filtered water, chlorination, then you are definitely not going to get a worm population. Those two things don't exist in nature. So when we add those unnatural factors to our environment, we see great increases in autoimmunity and cancer in the last 100 years. Due to the worm population or not, we shall discover. So what do we look for in a therapeutic worm? Well, we want something that doesn't create disease. There's no disease associated with hookworms, at least scientifically. There is some conception that these things create disease, but that doesn't exist in the science. Does not multiply inside the body, so you don't want something that's going to replicate inside the body itself. You want to control the dosing. Hookworms require a cycle in the soil. You don't want something that can be transmitted to someone else who does not want worms, and you want something that has at least the chance of being highly therapeutic if you're going to go through all that time and effort and re-education. What do worms do? Okay, for some reason I'm pathologically attached to this slide, but the hookworms are the conductor. Okay, in your gut, it's the hookworm signals that will determine the proper balance of your microbiome and your flora. So some patients, you can try and treat their flora with every different probiotic, and I know you've all experienced it. The patient will always aggravate and never see an improvement. Now, I've cured many cases. This is my 21st year of practice. I've treated thousands of patients. I've seen many patients cured on a probiotic, but they're usually not patients that have a highly inflammatory history in their past. right? So you're rebalancing a scale that's not that likely to be unbalanced. Okay, so hookworms have a conductor-like effect. That's not me, that's the researchers here. In fact, when your patient has hookworms and another worm, the anti-inflammatory effect of the hookworms increases by 10 times. So when you think of IL-10, you have to think prednisone. IL-10 is what activates the monocytes to produce prednisone. Okay, so why do we use prednisone in our culture? Because we're replacing the lack of our own prednisone. Why do we use soil-based microorganisms? Because we're replacing the lack of soil-based microorganisms in our natural diet. So this is your two kind of patients. You have the Empire State Building, and you got the pancake. So these patients, you and I both treat them, you cure them. I had a patient 15 years, Crohn's, one homeopathic medicine, completely cured. It's seen about 100 doctors prior to coming in. Okay, great, the pancake. Low stability, fine. This patient's never going to respond to that. Okay, I've had over 100 constitutional homeopathic medicines prescribed for me. None of them ever stabilized my immune system. So maybe you would have prescribed me the 101st magic one, but I got a little tired of waiting around. 20 years is a good investment of time. Okay, so let's talk about the Empire State Building. We're going to talk more about the Viking heritage part of the case. Don't think I'm pointing at Rick, guys. He's doing my slides for me because of equipment failure. Prednisone increases IL-10, okay? Glucocorticoids upregulate the same chemical that are upregulated by hookworm infection. Why do we respond to prednisone? I just covered that. All right, so basically this is the scenario you have. You have bacteria, which are kind of stupid. They're just playing checkers. They move around. If they touch each other, they might communicate a little bit. Then you have us way up here playing four-dimensional chess, the most brilliant organisms in the universe. And then you have this intermediary, and the intermediary that can communicate with that bacteria population is worms. I mean, can you communicate with your own bacteria? Maybe in some esoteric sense, but I've never seen a study that could change your level of bifidus by talking to your bifidus. This guy can. He knows how to do that. He's got all the signals. He's got all the equipment. It's the guy that comes in with the full tool set. You know your water heater is going to start the next day. Okay. So basically, worms organize your bacteria. And a lot of us, if we don't have that kind of control, will never get an organization in our immune system. Overview was, I'm going to cruise through these. If you have a question, particularly about a slide, fine. If you have an in-depth philosophical or medical question, call me, text, or email, that's no problem. But I'm going to zip through these slides because I want to get through a lot of them. We used to think there were several parts of the body, right? Urinary tract has no bacteria, nervous system, spinal cord, complete myth. They find bacteria everywhere they look, if they look the right way. So your body is saturated with bacteria the same way the sponge is saturated with water. That's why we have all these inflammatory brain diseases. What do you think the body's inflaming to? It's the bacteria in the brain. So we're going to talk about bacteria and how the worms regulate that response. Worms are giant, at least 10 stories. The smaller ones are the size of a car. People have tremendous misconceptions about what a worm population looks like. A hookworm is about the width of a couple of human hairs and about the length of the tip of a pencil, half an inch. Normal dose that patients come in with is 10 to 20 hookworms. So all of them together probably take three drops of blood a day. And if you're highly autoimmune, that's not a big price to pay. That affects the worms. So if you don't have worms, not all of you, obviously maybe none of you, but if you're autoimmune like me, if you don't have them, you react to everything in the environment because you don't have that induced tolerance. If you add the worms, all of a sudden you can eat. I mean, at some point, having your patient be gluten, egg, dairy, nightshade, salicylate, fructose, sulfur-free is going to get a little frustrating for the eating schedule. Okay? So at some point you have to stop doing that even though that works great in some patients, sure, we cured a lot of arthritis with some ship captain I treated. I took him off gluten, he was a B. And 6 months later he came back, he was off 4 drugs and lost 50 pounds. Thought I was a genius. Okay, you get those patients, and I get that. Sometimes you don't get those patients, and you need to think differently. So this is the worst slide ever. But basically what we're saying is there's some normal things that will survive even if you're hyper-inflammatory. Most people don't respond to their own lactobacillus. But if you are, you need the worms, these are the worms here, to induce that tolerance to things. That should be tolerated. Yes, including Lyme. Lyme should be tolerated. We'll talk about that. So, you start having this kind of diet, the broccoli and salmon diet. I mean, I don't ever want to see another piece of bok choy. It doesn't taste good. I don't care what you tell me. So you end up like this. The patient can't eat any of those breads. Everything irritates them. Next, please. And if you induce immune tolerance, then you can have a patient that can have a normal diet. They'll still react to the things that have super strong triggers, but the threshold will be lowered when normal residents don't aggravate them as much. Problem with allergens is the most nutritious foods are the most allergic foods. Right? Would you rather be stuck on an island with 1,000 pounds of broccoli or 1,000 eggs? We know that. We know the most nutritious foods are the most allergic because they're the most like us or they're the most like animals, and that's what we're going to react to. That's why diets are horrible. And then you have the no practice. You come in, patient, nice person, thinks you're a nice person, come in and they get, second visit, they get, 5 pages of notes. God forbid they have a kid. Oh my God, if they have 2, forget it, It's just not practical. It's not medicine, and it's not healing. And that's the threshold I got to with my own kids and my own family, my own health, a couple of years ago. This is a result of 3 years of intense research, and these slides probably took 3 months every spare minute I had. This, I'm calling it wormwood. Any herbalist in here knows that this is the worst drawing of wormwood ever. But the point is, anti-parasitic herbs, to my research level, don't exist. Why? Because I tried it on myself. So I took a ton of wormwood. My eosinophils did not drop. Eosinophils are the signal that you have a worm population. I've also tried a lot of other herbs. None of them dropped my eosinophils. When I took albendazole, which is the poison that kills worms, my eosinophils dropped the next day. So I know we think we're doing a lot of deworming in our profession, but I wonder if that's really what we're doing. Maybe it's for smarter people than me to figure out exactly what's happening. All ancient people have worms in their poop. Kings, queens, pharaohs, etc. All ancient people used herbal medicine. You know who uses a lot of herbal medicine? Gorillas. They eat a lot of herbs. You know what they all have? Hookworms. Okay? So I don't know if there's some special herbal medicine that you may have, but I'm telling you, when you take herbal medicine, it doesn't kill your worms. If they did, no one would have worms. Because all these ancient people were using herbal medicine, arguably better than we were. I don't know if I have the same herbal expertise as a Native American shaman. And you look at all their poo, and it's all got worms. So they were either bad doctors or herbs don't kill worms. We see a lot of hormonal regulations by patients that come in on worms, including some really weird stuff that people have, like, you guys know, you see all kind of hormonal problems that maybe the progesterone or estrogen aggravates, or the homeopathic hormones don't fix, or you put them on some specialized lock that doesn't straighten it out. The worms straighten it right out. They have a powerful effect on the pituitary that I don't think's been explained. What is natural medicine? You guys all do natural medicine, right? So what's more natural? 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C is 45 oranges. Is that natural? And I picked the highest food, that I could find. 10,000 IU vitamin A is 200 eggs. 20,000 vitamin D is 1,000 glasses of milk. 10,000 IU of vitamin E is 1,000 tablespoons of sunflower seeds. Not to mention intravenous, etc., etc. Herbs concentrated many times, 10 to 1, 100 to 1. essential oils, 10,000 pounds of rose petals in a vial, 1 ounce vial. I don't know if that's natural. Right? So I'm going to argue natural versus unnatural. I would say, consider when your patients come in and inquire if maybe having a normal worm population that every primate in the world has is maybe a little more natural than 200 eggs. And that's what I found, of course. No supplements ever worked for me. I never felt an improvement on a supplement. Both Linus Pauling's wife and his partner died of cancer, in spite of massive vitamin C dosing. So, yeah, okay, vitamin C can do amazing things, but not in every patient. Ancient medicines work great for ancient people, okay, because it matched them. Not all worms are good, but not all bacteria is good. We don't dose people with streptococcus, to balance the flora, use lactobacillus. Okay, so yeah, you don't want a 10-foot tapeworm. We all get that, But if we have a worm that can be therapeutic, that is not shown to stress the immune system or the physiological system, then that's something that should be a good case for consideration. Any argument you can make for probiotics, I can make for parabiotics. Okay. We call it breaking bread, right? When we eat together. We don't call it breaking broccoli. Why? There are qualities in these foods that are energetic and more than we can figure out with our own mind and our own science. Science can make seawater exactly to the specifications that match ocean seawater, and the fish die. Okay? So I think when we remove things from the environment, including diet, we have to start being a little more careful and a little less reckless. Some of the craziest patients I treat are gluten-free. Now, I don't know why, but they get, I don't know, it's a serotonin receptor issue, it's a adrenal response, I'm not sure. But I'm very careful about pulling diet food out of patients' diets now that I understand this a little more. When you eliminate food, you isolate people, right? What do religions do to identify themselves as a subset? They have special food codes. Okay? When you start imposing special food codes on your patients, you isolate them. Now, sometimes it's a catch-22. Would you rather have arthritis or not be able to have your bread with your family? Okay, if we're stuck there, we're stuck there. But maybe we don't have to be stuck there. Okay, structure and function, right? Back to naturopathic school. If you want to have proper function, you have to have proper structure. So if someone breaks their tibia and it never heals right, they'll always have knee and hip pain. You can give them as much anti-inflammatories, turmeric, as you want. You're not curing the problem. The problem is the dysregulated structure. Okay, for some of us, the problem in our bodies and our immune system is a dysregulated structure. And if you want to restore the function, you have to restore the structure. And the proper structure of the human gut, not the past 3 generations, but every generation prior, and every primate, is a worm population. So this is what I call the AI jail, right? Diet, nutrition, homeopathy, having to sit in front of people like us, plead your case, Help me out, please, I can't drive the train to work because I gotta go to the bathroom 15 times. If you can set your patients free from that, you're doing a great thing. And on the other side, of course, is surgery, immunosuppression, steroids, antibiotics. We make people choose between these 2 things, but I think a higher level of healing is you get them off that seesaw. Is it possible? I don't know, but I think we should be thinking about it, and this is where we should be putting our heart and intention and soul, and I think we could probably do a lot of good for the world. Humans are supposed to have worms. Okay, real quick. Africa has 9 worms they found in ancient populations. Europeans have 18. So don't give me this, well, we're not native peoples, we're European, and then we don't have as many worms. Europeans have twice as many worms as they look through the ancient stool. Asian 12. North American 16, that's what they found in ancient stool. So again, just don't tell me. This is from around the world, going back 4,000 years, every continent, and they find worms all over the place. They never find it without worms. Mummies had worms. Now, if you were a mummy in a tomb, theoretically you had the big bucks, right? They just didn't throw everyone in there, right? So this guy probably had a good doctor and a good herbalist and was treated, and he still had worms. So again, they weren't knocking out worms with ancient medicines. Commonly found in all groups. Okay. A 9,000-year-old sites have worms. I don't want to beat you guys to death with this. Okay, interesting part here. All right. So, I'm going to talk about a specific race of people. Okay, different races get different diseases. Okay, autoimmunity is not due to stress. Okay. For example, black people don't get ankylosing spondylitis. No matter how stressed they don't get ankylosing spondylitis. What does that tell us? Ankylosing spondylitis is a gene. White people have it, black people don't. So there's your control population there. So stop blaming your patient's inflammatory symptoms on their lifestyle, because it's about the genetics. And you have to work within that understanding of genetics. That's just one autoimmune condition that they're able to identify exactly what the gene is. But you know every other autoimmune condition is going to have that same gene, or same series of genes. All right, so all white people are Vikings. What does that mean? So basically what happened is the Norse people were the most strong people of that time, what we call the Vikings. And they were the most aggressive, okay? So they came down to the German tribes, wiped them all out. Then a couple thousand years ago, they moved west and took everyone else out. So you might think you're English or Irish or maybe think you're a little Welsh. You're not. You're Norse. Because they had a system of marriage that prevented marriage to people that were not exactly like that. So they weaned all the other people out. So when you think about your average person that comes in, you have to think about them as a Viking. So the Vikings, what did they do? Germany, Europe, England, Ireland, out to America, down to Australia. That's the only place you see things like Crohn's. You see Crohn's in Vikings without worms. You see IBS in Vikings without worms. Okay. So what we have is a highly aggressive immune system. I'll have a slide for that. World Journals, that just shows it. You guys can check that. Highly aggressive immune system of Vikings. So what happens? Vikings, when they look at their old ancient sites, it's full with worms. Hookworms, whipworms, pinworms, worms from their dogs, sheep, goats, loaded with worms. The most loaded concentration of parasites that you find in ancient stool, you find in Viking sites. Okay, so the Vikings were driving uphill. So they didn't need brakes. You can't make vitamin C in your body. Why? Because you were exposed to vitamin C in the environment. The body doesn't replicate tasks. Okay? You're not 70 feet tall so you can pull the coconut off a tree. Okay? It minimizes the amount of risk that it takes to accomplish things that can be accomplished in other ways. So, the Vikings had no brakes. It was an uphill battle. 3 generations ago, we killed off the worms, and now they're racing downhill out of control. And that's me and my family. Every one of my siblings has autoimmune disease. Vikings had worms, told you that. Worms are where the Norse people are. We'll get to a little cancer slide, but we'll get into cancer. Scottish people have multiple sclerosis. Are the Vikings to blame? Yes, they are. Thank you. 30 minutes, that's great. I'm doing good. I'll actually be able to explain something. Thank you very much. Wow. We've gotten to the big time now, okay? Genes associated with autoimmune disease. It shows you autoimmune disease is a genetic problem. It's not an emotional problem. It's not a lifestyle problem. It's not a, you guys can make it up, you know? In fact, I watched this video where they sent a bunch of people to some shaman in South America. The guy with allergies got better, the asthma got better, you know. The guy with Crohn's, nothing with that. Of course, because you're not really treating the problem, you know. That shaman is not treating a lot of patients with no worms. Okay. Why were Vikings so much slower? Obviously, all these worms were not the plague that they're presented to. The Vikings were much taller than the people of those times. In fact, Tacitus writes about it in the 1st century, talking about there were no people like the people of the Norse. And then 1,000 years later, I've never seen more perfect physical specimens. Okay? So these worm populations were not killing off the Vikings. They were thriving in this environment. The rest of the world was scared of them. These are my favorite Vikings here. You see classic autoimmune patient, okay? Flaxen hair in childhood. That color is flaxen. It's like flax. It was flaxen hair, and you'll see cowlicks in these patients. Okay? They call them towheads. Okay? Toe is when the tide comes in and swirls around. So that's a Viking. That's from the Viking, towheads. So that's my sister with MS. That's me. And that's my brother, colitis and Crohn's. So why do these 3 people have autoimmune disease? They have autoimmune disease for no other reason than their immune system is prepared for a worm population. That is the breaking system, and they don't have worms. Well, they do now, but that's different. Worm science. Okay, when your patients come in and ask you, because they will, and they'll have figured out, you know, some source for themselves. There's different kind of hookworms, okay? Just like there's different species of dog. Well, no, let's not break it down to dog. Just like we have kind of wolves and dogs, we have good hookworms and bad hookworms. And it's very important the patient gets the right medicine. The wolfworm is very hard on the system. Maybe that's the worm that they were killing off in the 1900s. We don't really have any good records about that. Takes a lot more blood, can be transmitted through breast milk, can live outside the intestine. It's no joke. You really have to make sure you help your patient find the right solution for their condition, because this can put you into a flare and make you sick. The dog worm is your normal Nectar americanus, the hookworm. Third of a drop of blood per day. Only, it can only live in the intestine. Makes less eggs. It's not aggressive. Symbiotic. Doesn't stop its life cycle. Goes to completion of its life cycle. Do you have any questions on that? Okay. So, good worms and bad worms. Hookworms are really clever. As they're getting into the system, they'll fool your immune system. They'll send out a lot of decoys, pretend it's something else, pretend it's an allergen. Patients come in reporting really weird kind of symptoms that they get. But they're very smart, and they've been around for 100 million years. There's probably no trick you're going to pull that they haven't seen. They're now experimenting with mice worms, okay, the normal worms that mice would have, and using them to create immune tolerance for skin transplantation in the mice. So what are they inducing? They're inducing tolerance with the normal worm population. So you're 10 years ahead of the curve. Every transplant patient will have a worm population in 10 years, obviously, because you don't want them to reject the organ. Okay, we talked about that. At some point in the future, maybe the patient will come to you and you'll pick the right worm for them from your worm store, right? Because worms have different DNA. Even within the species of Nectar americanus, they have like the poodles and, you know, Staffordshires, the pit bulls, and have the Great Danes. So you're going to have to, 15 years, match up your patient with the right worm. You guys can do that ahead of the curve. You'll see eosinophils in patients' blood work. That means they have an active worm population. body eliminates worms. Next slide, I'll show you that. Teenage hookworms, they can live for years, 10 years, 15 years. So they did a study of these Australian geeks, 3 guys that like to capsule endoscopy themselves, so that have taught me so much about the science. So basically what we're looking here is the week. So this is going forward in time. And this is telling you where the worms are in the intestine. Okay? So you see he started off with the population here, stable, I think it was 16 something hookworms. Then they gave them 50 worms, and then they watched the worms move through the intestine. And you see, they kind of all moved through the intestine until they returned to the same dosage. So it seems like human beings have a stable worm population that is individually determined. And if you have too much, at least with hookworms, the body can decrease the amount of hookworms that are in the system. That's pretty amazing. That's a lot different than you might hear about, hookworm overgrowth in populations. But here's the study, and the guys that watch the worms move through the intestine. They return to normal levels. We talked about that. The same way acidophilus doesn't infect your whole body if you take a probiotic out. Worms are regulated in the same way. You have determined level, predetermined level. Pregnancy and hookworms. Man, it took me a lot to find this. Hookworms have a protective effect in pregnancy. If you have a mom that has hookworms and you kill off those worms, you will have a more allergic child than if you just left it alone. So personally, thinking about more kids, I would make sure that whoever I had kids with had hookworms. Because I don't want that person, that child, to have the highly allergic system that I had. So it's kind of a different concept than we're used to thinking about. Killing off worms increases allergies. Hormonal regulation. This is just a report of a patient that did hookworms and just felt tremendously better. Got pregnant. Treatment for fertility, absolutely, because of the pituitary regulation. So, amazing things that we can touch on that are quite hard to touch in some patients. Worms make babies less allergic. Yeah, we talked about that. Eczema when the mom doesn't have worms. We talked about that. Children are usually infected at 6 months in native cultures with hookworms. Treating autoimmune disease with hookworms. This is great. We've been through it. This is my slide, so this is me. So what's the immune system doing here? This is a couple of years ago. It's actually raising my CD8 suppressor cells to try and stop my inflammatory reactions. So it's pulling out all the stops it can with the little I gave it to work with to try and downregulate my hyperinflammatory nature. So it was asking for help right here. Very rarely, if you guys do CD8 and CD4, will you see elevated CD8. At least you know if you see it now, it's autoimmunity. So basically, here we go. Inflammatory bowel disease only exists in Nordic people that populated America and Australia. The Australian hookworm study, these same guys that like to capsule endoscopy themselves, took 12 patients with celiac severe, a little sprinkle of gluten in the bathroom for 2 weeks. They gave them hookworms. I think they gave them, I'm going to say 15. They gave 3 months with hookworms to get up and running. Then they slowly increased the amount of gluten that they introduced into their system to a level at 6 months where they could eat a bowl of pasta. All the patients could eat a bowl of pasta at 6 months. At 12 months, they said, we're going to kill off your worms and we're done with our study. None of the patients let them kill off their worms. And why would you? You can finally eat with your family or go out or get a little sprinkle of an allergen and not be in bed for 2 weeks. Australian celiac study, yeah, that's there too for you. And so, did worms enable civilization by making it possible for white Nordic people to eat wheat? The Australian hookworm study says yes. At least for some of us, our genes wouldn't have survived if we did not have hookworms when we were exposed to wheat. I'm happy to be here, so thank you, hookworms. Civilization may not have been possible without worms. Increasing the hookworm studies showed that the bacterial diversity increased upon exposure to hookworms. Diabetes only exists where people with worms are cleared of their worms. There's a concentration of worms, there's a concentration of diabetes. Those are where the worms are most concentrated. Crohn's disease only exists, you guys get the point. Same point. Parkinson's disease is an autoimmune disease of the basal ganglia because there's bacteria in those basal ganglia and the immune system is attacking it. How are you going to downregulate that inflammatory response? There's Crohn's patients after receiving hookworms going out to almost a year, and this is the symptom level index. It's right there for you. I mean, it's black and white. Worms and organ transplantation, we kind of covered, but I want you to have the slides to look at preventing rejection of organs that are transplanted with the presence of hookworms that are like your little prednisone factories, but give you bioidentical doses, give you just what you need in exactly the right amount. Immunotolerance. Too complicated, but this is just about inducing immunotolerance in mice. Okay? Yeah, you can look at this. But basically, you end up making prednisone at the end of it, bioidentical prednisone. Diabetes is where the worms aren't, and they're using worms in mice to treat mice that are highly prone to diabetes. Brain symptoms of autoimmune disease. Okay, brains can live near volcanoes and sulfur pools. Brains can live, bacteria can live in the Marianas Trench. Okay, you really think bacteria can't live in your brain? It's ridiculous. Okay, they've had hundreds of millions of years to figure out how to live inside the million brains. Of course you have bacteria in your brain. So it's saturated with it, and that's where a lot of brain diseases come from, in children and adults, from Alzheimer's to Parkinson's to ADD and OCD. Neuropsychiatric symptoms of inflammatory disease. Okay? Your patients that are highly inflammatory will be less successful because of their inflammatory nature. They'll be less confident, less calm, less assertive, less loving, more irritable. So you really have a very high level of responsibility to get these patients in inflammation down. You can't have autoimmune disease if you want your brain to work. And I've certainly experienced that myself. I mean, I've been on hookworms for 2 years now, and my brain works twice as good as it did prior. And I was already pretty smart. But I see I missed a lot of opportunities in life because I was very inflammatory. If you're inflammatory, you activate the amygdala, which is your fear center. So you'll take less risk. And if you get less risk, you get less reward. Luckily, I had my worms before the Bitcoin surge, so we're doing okay. All right, so animal infections prevent autoimmune disease in animals. Okay, so worms and limes, good one. This shows you a Lyme response after 6 months, even though the Lyme is clear. Basically, the blue is cool, the red is hot. Your immune system stays hot in some patients after the Lyme is clear. Why? Because it's not about the bacteria, it's about your reaction to the bacteria. Lyme is a normal part of our ecosystem. When they deforested Ozzy the Iceman, he had Lyme. Okay, they found a tick in amber from 50 million years ago. They broke it open, investigated it, it had Lyme. Lyme is not a new disease, okay? What's new is the immune system it's landing. So we don't have a study with hookworm and Lyme, but we do have a study with hookworm and malaria. So malaria and Lyme, a lot of similarities, a lot of overlap. What do they find? People with hookworms have less bad reactions to malaria. Much less chance of organ failure, much less renal failure, less jaundice, higher nitric oxide concentrations. So, and I do know a patient that tried everything for Lyme 2 years ago, did antibiotics, everything conventional, did everything natural. I mean, a ton of stuff. Still had mast cell disorder, a severe mast cell. We'll go through a box of tissues her neck. She went out and got hookworms, took her hookworms. 2 weeks later, the allergy stopped completely. And I just saw her a week ago, no signs of allergies. So for those Lyme is another one where some patients do antibiotics and they're fine, some patients feel terrible. Okay, I'm going to zip through these. I told you guys about mast cell syndrome. This just slide just shows you that infections look a lot like autoimmunity. Why? Because autoimmunity is infections. It's poorly treated infections in the body. In fact, it's reacting to things that should just be left alone. The monovirus can't replicate in your body unless the immune system attacks it. So if you stop attacking mono, you'll stop making chronic fatigue. Cancer and worms, right? Because they're all like, we're going to cure this person with cancer by killing their worms. Well, who gets cancer? White people in first world countries. Who doesn't get cancer? Native people in native environments. So it doesn't even make sense. Anyway, eosinophils really raise when we get worms. Eosinophils greatly decrease your risk of pathological cancer and greatly heal from cancer. And the slides show that. Low cancer, where native people have their native worm populations. High cancer, when Nordic people have been cleared of their worms. The last slide is just going to say the same thing. Just zip through them for me so I can get to the end. Infiltration of tumor, that's fine. Infiltration of tumors with eosinophils makes you much less likely to have pathological cancer. One of the ways to treat patients with cancer, in addition to their conventional medicines, is increase their eosinophil score. That's not going to interfere with any chemotherapy. Go ahead. How much time do we have? It's more than enough. Okay. Hookworms stimulate cancer defenses. Okay. Improve prognosis of colon tumors with eosinophils. No. Skip that. High eosinophils, lower the cancer. So again, you've got to increase the eosinophils. Okay. Done with hookworm, onto whipworm. Whipworm is the hookworm of the colon, because you're going to be hearing about this, so I'm going to just cover it. So basically what happens is the hookworms live here in the 1/6-inch section of the small intestine. That's the only place they like to live. Whipworms like to live down here in the cecum. That's why all these patients get appendicitis, because they're overreacting to the bacteria in their appendix. So if you had whipworms down there, you would not have appendicitis. Right? We work against you from an evolutionary standpoint to have a massive intestinal infection when you're 12 years old, right? So nature would have weeded those people out with tiny cecums or whatever one calls them. Your body's expecting immunoregulation to be there, and it's not. That's why that inflammation gets out of control. Let's see, which one is this one? Let's go to the next one. Researchers found that sick monkeys, which is all we are at some level, had an abnormally high rate of bacteria attached to their colon, and after treatment with whipworms, their colon bacteria communities have changed substantially. They tested monkeys that had idiopathic colitis. Right? How many patients have idiopathic colitis? There's no explanation. You can spend thousands of dollars finding one bacteria, but when the next guy comes in and has the same bacteria, and there's no problem at all. That's idiopathic colitis. Colitis without explanation. When they give them hookworms, the monkeys get better. We share the same one. Until we get to the end here. The perfect life. The mom gets worms, the baby's not allergic. Proper palate formation, perfect. Proper palate formation occurs when you don't have nasal inflammation. Then the tongue rests on the top of the palate and pushes it out. Then you get a nice place for your teeth to come in. If you don't have that, you get a narrow palate because you're a mouth breather. Then you need the braces, then you stress the roots, then you make it much more likely the patient's going to need either root canals or implants, and now you have something you really have to work with. You can prevent all that. That can be prevented. No inflammation in childhood, the patient's happier, increased serotonin, increased IQ, confidence, security, and self-esteem, better spouse, better job, better decisions, and better friendships. All because you stopped inflammation in the mom. Perfect life, I don't know, but a better life for sure. Go ahead, Rick, let's go. I don't know if we have to do the extra parts. That was a lot. Let's stop there, okay? Give you guys a break.
Thank you very much. Do you mind if we ask a couple questions? Since we have a couple minutes?
I would rather continue with the slides.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, I told them in the beginning questions could come. All right, so let's go to the next part. You can email me, text me, call me with questions, we can talk. So there are some other worm approaches you might hear about from your patients. Pig whipworm, that's TSO, that was studied for Crohn's, that didn't work. I don't know why we're studying pig whipworms in the human body. We don't put a Mercedes part in a BMW, we don't, you have to have the right parts for your body. Dithering around the edges is not going to cure it. In fact, I see patients come in more inflammatory having done pig whipworms. The angel worm is the rat tapeworm. It only lives in the gut for 3 weeks. It's one of the ways patients sometimes experiment with worms. But again, I haven't seen personally the deep therapeutic effect, though I know the company and the people's intentions are very good. So this is what I would say about, if I have a minute to talk about practice. This is very predictable and stable. If you give someone an aspirin or a Tylenol, you know what's going to happen, okay? There's not much value there, okay? On the edges, things are less predictable. But that's where the value is. And the responsibility is a lot higher. Someone goes into a doctor for a headache, he says, take 2 Tylenol. He doesn't have to lose sleep at night. Someone comes to you and says, I'm thinking of doing hookworms. Would you be okay monitoring me? Now you get some responsibility in your hands, but you also have some value. To me, in my experience, if I've had any success, it's because I live out here on this line of value, where I help my patients take chances that are tired of living compromised lives. Okay. That should be good.
Thank you very much.